You ever meet someone who just feels off? Maybe they smile at you, but behind that smile, there's a shadow. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, someone close enough to touch your heart, but instead, they're draining it. You can't put your finger on it, but your soul knows something's not right. Folks, sometimes what we're dealing with isn't just bad behavior. It's something darker. Tonight, let's talk about how to spot the demons hiding in plain sight, even in the people closest to us. You ever notice how some people leave you lighter and some people leave you heavier? You can sit down with someone for 10 minutes and afterward you feel like the sun just rose inside you. Or you can spend that same 10 minutes with somebody else and you walk away like you've been carrying bricks on your back. That, my friends, is not just about personality, not just about mood swings or bad days. That's energy, and energy never lies. See, demons don't walk up wearing horns and red capes. They're smarter than that. They show up in familiar faces, in close voices, in the people we think we can trust. But their fingerprint is this: they drain you. They don't leave you better than they found you. They take your peace, your joy, your hope, little by little, until you're running on fumes. And you don't even know how you got there. And when you're not paying attention, you'll excuse it. You'll say, oh, that's just how they are. Or they've had a rough day. But your soul knows. Your spirit feels it. You can't fake energy, not for long. You know? Think about the times you've walked away from someone and felt confusion. You replay the conversation in your mind, but it doesn't add up. It's like the pieces don't fit. That's because what they gave you wasn't truth. It wasn't light. It was darkness dressed up in charm. Demons thrive on leaving you second-guessing yourself, doubting what you felt, questioning your worth. But energy speaks louder than words. If someone consistently leaves you drained, heavy, or restless, that's not just a personality clash. That's something deeper. Okay? Now let's flip it. When the presence of God is in someone, when love is genuine, when the spirit is clean, you know it. You feel lighter, you leave encouraged. You feel like you've got more in the tank than when you sat down. That's because his spirit uplifts, it restores, it heals. Demons divide, discourage, and destroy. God builds, strengthens, and gives peace. And that difference isn't subtle. It's night and day if you're paying attention, you know. But here's the tricky part. We live in a world where masks are common. Smiles can hide shadows. Compliments can cover daggers. And if you're only looking at the surface, you'll miss it. That's why you've got to learn to listen to what your doctrine, soul is saying. When your ears can't make sense of the words, that gut feeling you get, that heaviness you can't shake, that's not paranoia. That's discernment. That's the spirit inside you sounding the alarm, warning you that not everything is what it seems. You know, the danger is too many of us ignore those alarms. We say, well, they're family, they can't mean harm. Or, they're my friend, they've been with me for years. But demons don't care what bloodline you share or what history you've built. They care about influence. They care about access. And the closer someone is to you, the more powerful that access becomes. That's why spotting them starts with paying attention to the Greit's grade, simplest measure of all, how you feel after the exchange. Do you leave lifted or do you leave emptied? You know, and once you start paying attention, you'll notice the pattern. You'll see that it's not a one-off thing, not just a bad day here and there. It's consistent. You give and give, but you're left with less and less. They walk away charged up, and you walk away drained. That imbalance isn't natural. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not family the way God designed it. That's spiritual robbery. And the robber behind it wears a mask that looks familiar, but the energy they leave behind always tells the truth. So the first step to spotting demons in friends and family is simple. Listen to the energy. It's the one thing they can't disguise. Words are powerful. They build, they break, they guide, they deceive. And when it comes to spotting what spirit is working through someone, all you really have to do is listen. Not just hear, but listen, because the tongue will always betray the heart. A demon can wear a mask. But sooner or later, the words they speak will slip through the cracks and reveal what's really living inside. Think about it. When somebody's spirit is healthy, when their heart is aligned with light, their words give life. They encourage, they inspire, they lift. You can feel the honesty in what they say. Even if it's hard truth, even if it stings a little, truth always carries a weight to it that grounds you, steadies you, sets you free. But when there's something darker at work, the words have a different flavor. It may sound sweet at first, maybe even flattering, but underneath there's poison. That poison shows up as manipulation, as constant negativity, as deception so subtle you almost miss it. Demons thrive in language. They twist it, stretch it, bend it. Just enough to sound convincing, but never enough to set you free. They'll say things that keep you doubting yourself, keep you questioning your worth, keep you stuck. It doesn't always come out as direct attacks. Sometimes it's backhanded compliments, little seeds of discouragement, sly jokes at your expense, subtle digs that seem harmless in the moment but add up over time. Before you know it, those words have wrapped around your identity and started shaping the way you see yourself. And here's the thing, you don't always notice it right away because they may also speak charm. They may speak smooth. They may even speak scripture. But listen closely. Do their words line up with the truth, or do they bend it to fit their own agenda? Demonic influence doesn't mind borrowing God's language if it helps disguise its purpose. That's why discernment is key. It's not just what they say. It's what spirit is behind the words. Have you ever had a conversation where the words were right, but they just didn't sit right with you? You couldn't explain it, but you felt the weight of something false. That's not your imagination. That's your spirit telling you that those words weren't carrying life. They were carrying shadow. And the more you learn to trust that inner check, the quicker you'll spot the difference. The truth is, the enemy knows how to talk. He's been doing it from the beginning. He talked to Eve in the garden, not with a scream, but with a question. He didn't need to shout. He only needed to twist the truth just enough to make her doubt. That's the same tactic demons use today. They don't need to scream in your face. They just need to plant a seed in your ear. Doubt, discouragement, deception. It all starts with a word. So ask yourself, when I listen to this person, what happens inside me? Do I feel built up, strengthened, reminded of who I am? Or do I walk away confused, second-guessing myself, feeling smaller than I was before? That's the test. Because when someone is carrying God's Spirit, their words point you back to truth, back to peace, back to freedom. When someone is carrying something else, their words point you deeper into the maze, further from clarity, further from who God made you to be. That's why spotting demons isn't about watching what people look like. It's about listening to what people sound like. Words are windows. And sooner or later, they show you what spirit is speaking through the person. Chaos has a way of leaving footprints. You don't even have to look that hard because it follows certain people like a shadow. You notice it when every time they step into the room, tension rises. Every time they show up in your life, peace gets disrupted. It's like the weather changes when they arrive. Storms roll in, arguments spark, confusion takes over. And here's the thing. It's never just once or twice. We all have bad days. We all have rough patches, but when it's constant, when drama always seems to circle around a person, that's not coincidence. That's a signature. Demons love disorder. They can't survive in peace. They can't thrive in clarity. They need chaos to keep their ground. So they stir it up. They turn small misunderstandings into full-blown arguments. They pit people against each other. They whisper division into families, into friendships, into communities. And the scary part is, they usually do it so subtly, you don't even realize what's happening until the dust has settled and everyone's standing in different corners. All right. Think back to someone in your life who always seemed to carry drama with them. It didn't matter the situation. Wherever they went, something was bound to break down. Maybe it was constant conflicts at work, constant problems in the family, or friendships that always ended in flames. When the same story plays out over and over, you've got to step back and ask yourself, what's the common denominator? More often than not, it's the spirit operating through them that keeps lighting the match. Love, when it's pure, is the most freeing thing in the world. It doesn't chain you down. It doesn't demand you shrink. It doesn't twist your choices to serve itself. Real love gives space. It breathes. It lifts. But when there's a darker influence at work, that love gets twisted. What starts as affection turns into possession. What looks like care turns into control. And suddenly, the thing that was supposed to make you stronger is draining the life out of you. That's how demons work. They don't always show up as enemies. They show up as false lovers, false friends, people who claim to care but slowly wrap their influence around you until you can't tell where you end and they begin. Instead of love being a gift, it becomes a leash. Instead of encouragement, you get conditions. I'll stand with you if you do what I say. I'll be proud of you if you live the way I want. I'll love you if you fit the role I've chosen. That's not love, that's control dressed up in affection. And control never gives, it only takes. It feeds off your freedom, because your freedom is a threat to it. If you think your own thoughts, if you follow your own calling, if you grow beyond their grip, the mask falls apart. So what do? They tighten it. They use guilt, shame, manipulation, tools of bondage. They'll call it loyalty, but it's really fear. They'll call it commitment, but it's really control. Demons can't love the way God loves, because God's love never demands chains, it breaks them. You can feel it when you're caught in it. You start questioning whether you're allowed to make choices without someone's permission. You start wondering if your worth depends on how much you please them. You second guess your freedom, your voice, your own sense of self. That's not what love was made for. That's not what family or friendship or relationship was designed to be. God's love always leads to expansion. It grows you. Demonic influence shrinks you, corners you, keeps you small enough to control. And sometimes it's hard to spot because it doesn't always come through anger or force. Sometimes it comes through soft words. I'm only looking out for you. Or I just want what's best. But if what's best always keeps you under their thumb, if looking out for you always limits your freedom, then it isn't love, it's a counterfeit. And a counterfeit may look close to the real thing, but it will never give you life. It'll only drain it. The truth is, when love is real, you don't walk away from it feeling smaller. You walk away feeling more yourself than before. You feel lighter, freer, braver. That's how you know God's hand is in it. Because His love doesn't control, it empowers. His love doesn't manipulate, it releases. Anything less, anything that twists love into control is not from Him. So if you want to spot demons in the people closest to you, look at how they love. If their love feels like a cage instead of a covering, if it suffocates instead of strengthens, then you're not looking at love at all. You're looking at control wearing a mask. Light is a way of revealing things that shadows work so hard to keep hidden. You bring truth into the room. You bring prayer into the space. You bring God's word into the conversation. And suddenly the mask starts slipping. People who are carrying peace lean in. They welcome it. They find comfort in it. But people under darker influence, They flinch, they get uncomfortable. They roll their eyes, change the subject, mock, or even grow defensive. Because demons don't like the light. The light exposes, and exposure is the one thing they can't survive. You've probably seen it before without even realizing it. You mention something good, something true, something rooted in faith, and watch how the atmosphere shifts. Some folks soften, their walls come down, they breathe easier. Others tighten up like you've just threatened their very being. That reaction isn't random. That's the spirit inside them being confronted by something it can't control. Demons hate the light because it strips away their disguise. And here's what's tricky. They'll often mask that resistance with sarcasm or dismissal. Oh, you're too serious. Don't bring religion into this. That stuff doesn't matter. But deep down, what's really happening is the light you're carrying is exposing the darkness they've been trying to keep comfortable. It's like turning on a flashlight in a room full of cockroaches. They scatter. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be called out. So they deflect. They resist. They mock. But notice the difference. Someone who's genuinely searching, someone who's open, they might not understand yet, but they don't resist the light. They're curious about it. They lean toward it. Someone under demonic influence, though, will do everything they can to shut it down. They'll try to silence it or make you feel foolish for shining it. Because the light threatens their control. You see, darkness can only exist where light is absent. And when you carry light, when you speak truth, when you pray, when you walk in faith, you're not just existing in the room, you're shifting the atmosphere. And that shift forces whatever's been hiding in the dark to either come clean or lash out. That's why sometimes when you bring God into the picture, certain people suddenly distance themselves. They avoid you, avoid the conversation, avoid the places where they know the light will shine on them. That avoidance is telling, because love doesn't run from light, it runs toward it. And this is where your discernment sharpens. Pay attention to those reactions. Don't just listen to the words. Watch the spirit behind them. Does truth bring them peace, or does truth bring them rage? Does prayer calm them, or does prayer make them restless? Do they embrace the light, or do they shut it out? Because demons can play along with a lot of things, but they can't play along with the light. What you'll notice too is that when the light shows up, masks get heavy. They can't keep pretending forever. That's why some relationships suddenly break when you start walking in faith. That's why some friends fall away when you begin praying more, speaking more truth, living with more light. It's not that you changed in a way that harmed them. It's that the light exposed what they were hiding. And demons would rather leave than be revealed. So if you really want to know who's carrying what spirit, bring the light into the room. The way they react to truth, to prayer, to God's presence will tell you everything you need to know. The hardest thing about spotting demons in friends and family is that they don't usually look like demons. They look like people you love, people you've trusted, people you've shared memories with. And if you rely only on what you see with your eyes, you'll miss it almost every time. Because the flesh can lie, smiles can lie, familiar faces can lie. But the spirit, what's really operating inside, that doesn't lie. That's why you've got to learn to discern, not just observe. Discernment isn't about being suspicious of everyone. It's not walking around paranoid thinking the world is out to get you. No, it's about tuning your ear to the spirit of truth inside you. It's about realizing that God gave you more than sight and sound. He gave you a sense in your spirit that can tell when something doesn't line up, even when everything on the surface looks fine. That gut feeling, that inner nudge, that quiet voice that whispers, this isn't right. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And it's the most powerful tool you've got when it comes to spotting what's really going on behind the mask. See, demons are masters of disguise. They can act kind, they can speak sweet, they can play the role of the friend or the caretaker or even the spiritual guide. But they can't mimic the fruit of the Spirit for long. They can't fake peace, not consistently. They can't fake joy that lasts. They can't fake love that doesn't demand something in return. If you pay attention to the Spirit instead of the surface, you'll see the cracks. You'll notice how often their kindness comes with strings attached. You'll notice how their love feels more like control. You'll notice how their truth bends just enough to keep you confused. But this takes practice because the world teaches us to trust what we see. We're trained to judge people by their image, by their tone, by the story they tell us. And that's why so many fall into deception. They never stop to test the Spirit. Testing the Spirit means holding it up to God's light, holding it up to His Word, holding it up to what you know deep down is true. If it doesn't line up, if it doesn't bring peace, if it doesn't feel like freedom, then you've got to pay attention. You ever notice how sometimes you can't explain why someone doesn't sit right with you? Everybody else might think they're wonderful, but something in you just doesn't buy it. That's discernment. And later, when the truth finally comes out, you realize that nudge you felt wasn't wrong. It was God's way of protecting you. On the flip side, you might meet someone who doesn't look like much, doesn't sound impressive, but something about them feels steady, feels real, feels good for your soul. That's also discernment pointing you toward the light. The challenge is most of us don't slow down long enough to listen. We drown out that inner voice with excuses, with denial, with the noise of the world. But if you want to see clearly in a world full of masks, you've got to quiet yourself enough to hear what your spirit is telling you. Because demons may fool your eyes, they may fool your ears, but they can't fool the spirit of truth inside you. So when it comes down to it, spotting demons in the people around you isn't about suspicion. It's about discernment. It's about seeing beyond the flesh and trusting the Spirit. Because no matter how good the mask looks, the Spirit behind it always tells the truth. At the end of the day, this isn't about living in fear. It's about living awake. Demons hide in the familiar. They speak through charm. They stir up confusion, they twist love into chains, they run from the light, and they wear masks that look just like the people you thought you knew. But if you learn to pay attention to the energy, to the words, to the patterns, to the way they react to truth, and most of all, to the voice of discernment inside you, you'll see what's really moving behind the surface. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the gift. Because spotting the darkness is the first step to protecting your peace, guarding your soul, and walking in the freedom God always meant for you to have.